here we are, podcast number 8, with your favorite host, of course, Nate Fontes, and I, Bernie Sanders. Tonight, we have the pleasure of having one of our oldest and dearest friends, Nick Coffman. Give it up for him, Nate. What? Yeah. Let's, what can we say about this man here? This guy, I can go down the line here. This guy was pivotal and influential in our lives. He's held in high regard due to introducing us to heavy music back in the day, the underground music scene. And he's probably going to hate that I bring this up, and maybe even a little embarrassed for the masses to know. But this man was the first dude I ever see wear chick jeans.
Thanks for that.
What's probably more embarrassing is that I still wear chick jeans sometimes. So
I'm comfortable with after being in the Marine Corps, I'm comfortable with my manhood before and after that. So it's all good.
I just remember,
Bernie, the most embarrassing thing is you still wear chick jeans, and they sell guys jeans.
I know.
That are
like
slim fit. You can get guys jeans now.
I'm just trying to keep that tradition alive, I guess. I just remember going
whatever works, man.
I just remember going to the Gap, with you and Derek, and we were nervously hanging out in the girl section because we've never done that before. But of course, Nick, he didn't care what people thought. He was just fearless in the girl section. It was pretty funny. But more amazingly than that, you spent 5 years in the Marines, was it?
Yeah, it was 5.
And you served in Iraq. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, had about just over 9 months of fun over there in 2009.
Oh, yeah.
Supposed to have been a 13-month deployment, but it got cut short, and it was actually a pretty positive experience, honestly. I mean,
really?
It was a relatively slow time to be over there, so got to do some cool things, go to some cool places, and spend a lot of time with some good dudes, and it was not the deployment that I wanted, I guess, but
right.
That's what I got, so we can talk more about it if you had anything in particular, but I'm not really sure. There's a lot of directions I could go with it, so.
I mean, I'm just curious
I didn't have to kill anybody. I'll get that out of the way right now.
All right.
That's good.
That's every civilian's favorite question for me.
Yeah. How many people did you kill?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I ask my brother that every time I see him, and he's in the Navy, and he's stationed in a submarine, so he actually doesn't see very many people. Nice. Period.
Wow.
That's rough, man. I couldn't do it. I'm glad that everywhere that I went in the Marines was flying in an airplane or a helicopter. I didn't have to do the ship or, obviously not the submarine thing, but nah. It's not for me.
No.
I mean, I think there are downsides to probably each one, but he just recently did the 10 months, basically 10 months in a submarine. Obviously they port every once in a while, that, but basically 10 months, and so he's done now, and then he's thinking about re-enlisting, and then he'll be stationed on the mainland because he was in Hawaii, but.
Okay.
If he re-enlists, he's wanting to do Portland, I guess. They have another naval base up there or somewhere around there. But
wow.
Anyways,
yeah, that didn't sound like a bad gig.
No, sounds pretty good to me. But
it's usually the way it works. If you do your time in the crappy places, like
Hawaii.
Let's take that out and let's just stick with the 10 months on a sub. If you do your time wherever it is, then they usually give you a pretty sweet gig after that. But
no, I always give him crap. I'm sure it was terrible.
That's funny.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
But I mean, we talked about it in the first podcast. I think the first or second one we talked about Nick, and Bernie said something a little bit ago, he didn't care what people thought about him, and which was great for Bernie and I because we cared what everybody thought, and it really kind of taught us. It kind of gave us that swagger or whatever, and I just remember, God, dude, I know you hated it the first episode. You're gonna hate it again. But I thought Nick was the coolest man in the world. This dude was just the coolest man. And one of the first guys I heard with the gnarliest scream I'd ever heard. At that time, we were listening to like Skillet and POD, and
Project
just
86.
we'd never heard anything like that.
Project 86.
Yeah, Project 86.
That's the one that I always remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's what we sounded like at the time.
Yeah.
It
Embarrassing.
worked though.
Hey, I still
Everybody
like
just
Project
like-
86.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. I was gonna say, man, it's funny to hear that you guys talk about this stuff because I had like, in my life, I had some dudes that I went to school with. One that was actually a year younger, and the other one was 1 or 2 years older. They were brothers, and they were like, they had that effect on me that I had on you guys.
Mm-hmm.
So every time I hear you guys talk about it, it's embarrassing, but I get it because like
Yeah.
it's not because I'm anything special. I just happen to be the guy that introduced you guys to whatever.
Yeah.
And I know what that's like, man. Those 2 dudes were the coolest guys that I knew, and you know, at the time, I'm not saying I was or am cool by any means, but I get where you're coming from. So
Yeah.
So, but seriously, stop embarrassing me.
Yeah. Yeah. Real.
So many great bands, man. I was Converge, Dillinger Escape Plan, The Locust. I think we listened to them. I mean, I remember I don't remember a lot of things, but I think we were like listening to music in your room one time. There was like a bunch of people there. I don't necessarily remember all the specifics, but I remember we always had a good time.
Yeah, it was fun, man. I looking back on it, you know, I definitely don't regret anything. I mean,
No.
At this point, if I had to tell my son, like, hey, look up to these people, it probably wouldn't be the musicians that I did at the time.
Right.
But
Yeah.
that's what it was. Though. It's okay. That's part of growing up. You know, at some
Yeah.
point it was athletes, and another point it was musicians, and that was just part of it. It was a lot of fun. I definitely think that some of the better times that I had growing up were with like you guys and Derek, and just, you know, whether it was just chilling, like you said, at somebody's house, listening to stuff, riding around, or going to. Did we ever go to any shows?
I never went with you.
I know.
I
I did with Derek a
Yeah.
couple times.
Same.
Went up to Dirty Cleveland with him for something. I forget which one it was.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it was rough, man.
I remember we played a show in Cleveland once, and it was the scariest experience I've ever had. Cleveland is a nicer city now, but we were back then. We were like, where
Right.
are we getting?
Right.
I mean, at that point, we hadn't even probably like. There's a homeless guy every 10 feet, and we hadn't experienced anything like that, so it was traumatizing.
Yeah, for a youngin', it was a little rough. I'm sure it was fine looking back on it, but at the time, I was not a fan. So, but yeah, it was fun, man. I had probably a couple of years where I was trying to get into writing songs and doing the band thing like you guys did, and you know, for what it's worth, you guys, like, for lack of a better term, looked up to me in a sense as far as like, you know, introducing you guys to bands and stuff, but I always respected the fact that you guys did it, you know.
Right.
So
My guess is you probably don't listen to music like that anymore. Like the heavy
it's not
sound.
because I do actually. So I listened to 2 bands, and I probably couldn't tell you a band that's come out in the last 10 years. I listened to Extol,
Yeah.
There you go.
and I listened to Starflyer.
Wow.
Those are the bands.
Star-
Other than that, I listen to like podcasts. I listen to some talk radio, and that's about it. Like,
Wow.
it's
Yeah.
I don't intentionally do it. I
Yeah.
just don't have the time to like go discover new bands and stuff. I just stick to
Right.
Yeah.
the 2 that I don't know.
That's crazy. X-Stol's going pretty far back too.
Yeah, yeah. They first started in '97 with their first album, and
Right.
they just did their last one a couple of years ago, and it was. They had a couple of years where they were doing like their thrash metal stuff. I mean, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't my favorite.
Right.
And that last album that they did, the self-titled one, is
Yeah.
nuts. Like,
Yeah. That's my favorite
I listened
one,
to that
too.
for like 3 months straight. I had the CD at the time in my truck, and just anytime I got in my truck, it was blaring.
That's awesome.
Then, ironically, that's like one of the 2 bands that I've never seen live that I actually wanted to. So it was them and Spitfire.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
I actually
love
met Spitfire whenever I went to Cornerstone in 2001.
Oh wow.
I went there.
They're a Christian band?
They were on Solid State.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
You know how that works.
Yeah.
But one of the guys might have gone to church when he was young. But
Right. He saw a church once.
yeah. But I went with a group of friends, and one of our buddies stayed back because he was going to go see Spitfire somewhere in Kentucky. And we're like walking around, like, I don't know, maybe the second day or something, and we were walking around the big tent where all the merch tables were. And Spitfire had a table set up there. So like, what are you doing here?
Heck yeah, dude.
And they're like, for whatever reason, the show got canceled or something, so they showed up. They weren't actually playing, but they were there. So I met them, I bought their shirts, and that was it.
That's freaking
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then Extol, that was like the one year they didn't go, so I'll have to live with that for the rest of my life.
Yeah. I mean,
it's like the same experiences I have with like Every Time I Die, and Dillinger Escape Plan just played their final tour.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
And like obviously they go way back, but yeah, those are bands. Every Time I Die is a band that I listen to every album. They're just ridiculous to me. But other than that, I'm kind of the same way. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I'm interested in other people's points of view on different things. But yeah, that's why I listen to podcasts mainly.
Yeah. I find the older I get, I stick with what I know, and I listen to podcasts as well. And it's like I like Nate. I don't veer away from Every Time I Die and Norma Jean. They're still around, and they actually put out they just put out some of their best work last year with their 2 new albums, and that's what I stick with. I'm like, I hear bands here and there. And
there's a trend here. I feel better about myself now.
Oh yeah. It's not like I'm in the scene or anything at all. I have no idea.
Here's the other part of it. Not to sound like some old guy like yelling at kids on my front porch or anything, but new music is terrible. I've tried to listen to some newer stuff in different genres and whatever. I mean, maybe even some bands that like got back together and started writing different styles of music.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
That's why I stick to what I listen to.
Yeah. Pretty much.
It's not my fault.
Yeah. The problem is with the scene now, I think everything's overproduced, and it's like has a pop feel to it. And I think that's what the scene's missing these days, is that raw underground feel and sound.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is. Maybe I'm wrong.
I don't know.
Converge is still doing it pretty raw. Like
Derek sent me something about them fairly recently, and I have to admit that was actually pretty good.
Yeah, they sound the same. It's like pretty much.
Not a lot changed there.
Yeah. But back to what we were talking about before. I mean, like Nate was talking about, a lot of hanging out in your room. Like I can remember vividly, like the time you popped in that Solid State DVD. And we watched bands,
that's what it was.
Yeah, like Beloved and Norma Jean, and like moments like that forever changed us. And what happened was we took that sound and we went from sounding like Project 86 to like bands like Dillinger and the Chariot. We wanted to be like them, and so from there we brought that sound to our little scene, and that grew. And bands became successful out of that, like the Gun Show, this band that came out of Mansfield, and we're like, looked up to us. They actually did something. They were pretty popular.
That's cool, dude.
In the scene, yeah. And so like, it's just crazy to think of where it starts, the inception of things. But that's interesting.
I still remember that. I still remember the show in Mansfield. I went up there for I made like probably a half dozen trips up there over the years.
Yeah.
And I remember that one where you guys played the show. And you asked me, like, right before you guys started playing, like, dude, all right, we play this one song. I need you to come up, and you're going to, like, scream this or that. So that was fun.
Like, we hope you practice in the car.
I honestly miss those trips, too, man. Like, I know Mansfield's, like, a small town and all that, but, like, I legitimately used to love going up there. What was that? Was it Wings and Rings? What was that place called?
Yeah,
Wings and Rings, man.
It's forever gone.
They're not open anymore, but
I heard that. To this day, I have not had wings that good.
Same, man.
I'm sure.
No.
Yeah.
I remember.
They have buffalo wings now, and like that's where everyone goes. It's like it's terrible.
That wasn't why I visited. It was to hang out with you guys. But I'd be lying if I said that wasn't part of why.
You're going on record as saying that was the wings.
I'll admit that.
I was gonna bring up the fact that you write now, man. Like I can't read the full articles you put up because I have to sign up for it. But I'd
Yeah.
read through the first couple paragraphs, and you're like the real deal, man. Like,
I appreciate it.
what's the website? How do you pronounce it?
It's called sofrep.com.
Sofrep. I was saying
And
Sofrep.
Yeah, it's all right. So SOF is Special Operations Forces,
Okay.
and then REP is short for report. So it's a military news and analysis site with an emphasis on special operations. So out of the group of writers there, like the CEO of the media company is a former Navy SEAL. The editor-in-chief's a former Green Beret and Army Ranger. There's like Delta guys, and there's just I'm like one of the dorks in the group, if you want to call it that. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's dudes that have done some awesome things, and I'm just like a regular guy. So it's like humbling for me to be working with some of these guys that have been there and done that, and it's an awesome team, man. Like, they've really taken care of me. I went from being a reader of the site to overnight. They had a posting for a tryout, essentially, to get a writing gig. So I sent like 3 articles in, and I heard back, and the way it worked is like the top 3 picks that they selected would basically do like a write-off. Like, whoever's articles got the most hits in a certain amount of time would get the job.
Oh, wow.
So I beat the dude that got second place out by like a decent margin. So I got the job, and I was, in addition to working my full-time gig that I have at my IT company, I was writing full-time for the site, and it was 7 days a week, and it was a grind.
Yeah.
So to shorten the story a little bit, I stepped away from that, but they were like so I guess impressed with the work that I had done up to that point.
Right.
They allowed me to stay on and just contribute as I feel like it, and it's opened up a lot of doors to interact with some awesome people, and on a daily basis I'm much more in the know about what's going on from a military perspective in the world because of the awesome job that these guys do at the site, and it's been pretty sweet. It's kind of weird to be on this side of it. Like, literally one day I was a reader, and then the next day I'm like behind the curtain, like working on this stuff. So
that's
pretty
crazy,
fun.
man. Like, were you always interested in writing, or you just fell into it, or what?
Not really. I just kind of fell into it. Like it like the real backstory as far as how I even why I even tried out was like toward the end of my time in the Marines. I didn't have like some awesome crazy story or anything like that, but it was mine. And even if it was just my kids and my family, I just wanted to have like that written down. So I ended up doing like a self-published book. And at the time, I didn't have the publishing deal yet. So I had just been working on it for years. I think it was like a 3-year period or so, maybe even more, where I had just slowly done little bits and pieces of this book.
Right.
And so that was what sparked the interest,
Right.
Like, I had a few stories from me, and then a friend of mine that's also in the book that I was like, I could use this as an article, Like, it wasn't really about news. It was more just about telling some stories.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how it started. So
that's crazy.
I was able to read the majority of the article that you wrote on, see if I can get this right, TBI?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And CTE?
Yeah, I had there was a recon platoon that I wrote a separate article on, and it was basically how they got screwed over by their command, and some of them had some lasting, injuries that they had to deal with, definitely some brain injuries. And one of the guys in that platoon, his dad reached out to me and asked me if I would work on this article, because his son had actually just committed suicide, like, I think at the time it was just a few months prior. So it was pretty fresh in his mind, and he was like,
crap.
I need to do something about this to help any other guys that are out there struggling.
Yeah.
So that was how that one started. But pretty humble.
I think most people, we hear about it from like an athlete standpoint. You hear about CTE, you hear about brain injuries. We recently heard that Aaron Hernandez was obviously in jail, killed himself, had one of the most advanced stages of CTE that they'd ever seen in an athlete before. And like, that's real. I was reading through the stages, like you had the 4 stages on there, and it's crazy that we hear so much about it from an athlete standpoint, but I don't think, just like an everyday person, I mean, I'm just speaking for myself. We don't hear enough about it from the people that are actually fighting for our right to watch that sport.
Yes,
if you will.
No, it's true, man. And that's one aspect of it too. I mean, like, there's just so many things. Like, you compare an athlete, a professional athlete, to a service member in any branch, and especially guys that are in special operations. But those guys are world-class athletes for the most part. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're incredible at swimming. It's usually, I mean, there's exceptions, but generally speaking, running, swimming, climbing, you name it, like, they're amazing. But they don't have access to, like, the same level of treatment. There aren't programs in place to help these guys to build their bodies and maintain them in a proper way. And then on the flip side, like, whenever they get blown up and injured and stuff like that, they don't have the same level of recovery that professional athletes have. And I know that, you know, professional sports organizations are, you know, they're doing well enough to be able to provide this, but the military, as much money as they have and as much money as they spend, there's certainly, like, there's definitely areas that they could improve on and provide better care, you know. So, I don't know. Yeah, it's...
Yeah.
That's
awesome,
something
I think we spend a lot of money just in our federal budget. We spend a lot of money in our federal budget. Like, if you look it up, it's constantly ticking up. Like, like, you can't even fathom the amount of money that we're in debt and the amount of money we budget out to the different programs and how little we emphasize in some other, I think, key programs. But yeah, I mean, I'm not a math genius. I'm not a treasurer. I'm not secretary, any of those things. But, like, I think that there is and should be more money put towards that. But the problem is, like, we don't hear about it. Like, it's not made a priority. And to your point, we treat athletes are assets because for the simple reason that, for instance, Bernie and I were talking about it, like, right before you got on, and last night, Gordon Hayward got some outrage. It's like $172 million contract, something ridiculous, to play for the Boston Celtics over the summer. It's probably not that much. I might have made that number up, but it was a max contract at the time. And 5 minutes into the first game, he breaks his leg. And sickening to watch. Horrible injury. Don't wish that on anybody. It's terrible. But I promise you, he is getting max contract treatment right now. Because they view it as, okay, well, this guy, we paid him a lot of money. He broke his leg. That's going to hurt the fans. It's going to hurt the people watching. It's going to hurt the people buying his jersey. It ultimately is a insurance risk, right? So we want to get him back on the court. We don't necessarily care about him, but we want to get him back on the court as quickly as possible, so he can make them money. Right, to limit the loss.
Yeah, it's nuts, man. Like, if you think about the amount of money that if you think about the amount of money that the government spends on putting these specifically special operations guys through training, really any training, or, like, for a security clearance, it costs like tens of thousands of dollars in some cases, depending on the level. It's insane.
Wow.
So you multiply that times however many people are doing that, and I mean, the cost that they're investing into these guys is quite a bit. And then whenever they get injured or, you know, start breaking down, like, it's like all of a sudden their pockets are empty,
just replaced.
Yeah. So it's just they just you know, use somebody else to fill the spot and keep on moving. But like, the government spends a lot of money on the military, but when you compare it to other programs and other parts of our economy, it's a drop in the bucket. So it's really, it is a lot of money, but it's not like they aren't spending a lot more money on other areas that are way less important. So I don't know.
Well, and maybe there's an allocation problem. Like, you know, we put a lot of money towards the military, but maybe we're spending it, maybe we're focusing, and again, I don't know, but it could be shifted to different buckets, right? If the military is 1,000 buckets and each of them represent a different portion of our military or whatever. But I mean, I don't know. It's definitely a problem. There's a lot of problems, and I think that's for somebody to fight like that and then to come back and kill themselves or hurt other people.
Yeah.
That's a thing where, again, we could work to prevent.
Yeah.
I don't know. I will say, like, you writing for this, I think is awesome. I'm definitely a huge advocate of. I've seen a couple of your articles. I saw one the other day about one of the sergeants pleading guilty to something, and
that's one I saw too.
I think people bringing light to that. That was one actually I couldn't read, but people bringing.
Bo Bergdahl, the guy that deserted his unit and spent some time with the Taliban in captivity.
No way.
And
that's what happened.
So
oh shit.
Yeah. So he like for years he tried to say that, whatever. Long story short, he was not admitting to deserting, and a lot of guys were injured or lost their lives trying to find this dork. And years later, he's finally pleading guilty to it. And the purpose of that article was not only just kind of acknowledging that had happened, but there was a general, he's the top general in Afghanistan right now. In 2007, he screwed over a Marine unit. Like, Marine Raiders were a thing back in World War II, and then they got disbanded. Well, in 2006, they got stood back up. And the first MARSOC, Marine Raider unit in Afghanistan in the War on Terror, they were over there for just basically a few weeks, and then they got ambushed. And it basically got spun that they killed a bunch of civilians and, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Long story short, this general, a colonel at the time, threw them under the bus and accused them of war crimes and said that it was like a stain on our honor and all this stuff. The investigation was still ongoing, and it was later proven that there were no civilians killed, there were no bodies, no blood, no nothing. You know what I mean? Like they were innocent beyond a shadow of a doubt, and he never went back and corrected it. So for years, that was in 2008 that the court of inquiry happened. And even, I think it was 2012, 4 years later, he was still saying that they got away with murder, basically, even though it was proven in a court that it didn't happen. And this guy's now the top officer in Afghanistan. So my point in bringing up that article was that, everybody's rightfully so upset with this Bo Bergdahl guy for deserting his unit.
Yeah. And
he basically violated what's called Article 99, and the article outlines it, but this general he's not guilty of deserting anything, but he's guilty of 5 different things that are in Article 99, which are grounds to get severely punished.
Yeah.
Right.
So that was the point of the article. It was one of the biggest things that I've worked on at SOFREP is talking to vets that have been screwed over by their higher command. And I have court documents that were at one time classified, now they're declassified, so we can start putting the truth out there and have documents to back it up, and ask lawmakers to do something about it, because
So whatever happened to that unit?
So they got kicked out of Afghanistan. Most of them had their lives and careers ruined, whether it was marriages that fell apart because in that year or so where everything was leading up to the trial or the court of inquiry, their marriages fell out. I mean, can you imagine the stress for a year thinking you might be going to Leavenworth, for life? I mean, it did a lot of damage for those guys, and some of them had followed them throughout their careers. And one of the guys, the officer that was the commander of that unit, I've actually spent some time with him, and a really awesome guy, but he's really leading the charge. I mean, it really shows the kind of man that he is, he's been cleared, he's not in any trouble.
Right.
But 10 years later, he is still fighting hardcore every day to fully get their names cleared, because some of these guys still can't get jobs, including him. Anytime the HR department does a search for their name, they will find articles like the ones that I wrote if they look, but a lot of the times they'll see something that just basically says they're they murdered civilians, and there goes that opportunity. So
no way.
Even though they were cleared in a court of law, they the military and the DoD have never gone back to fully clear their name. They basically did what's called Friday, like a Friday news dump, where they had like a little one sentence blurb that said like they acted appropriately, and then it just disappeared.
Ooh,
so
there you go.
Yeah. So it's
sweep it under the rug.
Yeah,
Crazy.
Holy crap, dude.
But,
That's insane. I think you said something in the article, like something about should go to jail or run for office or something like that. Politics. What was that about? Who was that about?
It's about the same.
Yeah.
Basically, it was saying that Bo Bergdahl is a scumbag, the guy that deserted, and this General Nicholson guy was a scumbag. And I said the difference is one of them is probably going to jail, and the other one's probably going to have a career in
that's
politics.
What it was. Yeah.
So,
Sadly, probably true.
Yeah.
Oh man. So if you ever see the name Nicholson on a ballot, don't vote for that guy.
Vote no.
Definitely not. Yeah. That's crazy.
What are some of the things that what are some of the things that you've written that you're probably most proud of? I'm sure you're proud of every single one of them, but like some of the charges that you're leading and some of the information you're getting out there.
No, that's a fair question. I mean, honestly, mainly because of the time that I put into it, and there's some relationships that I've developed, as far as friends that I'm going to keep in touch with the rest of my life. That one for Fox Company, the name of this series, there's 5 parts to it, but if you look up Fox Company on sofrep.com, you can find all of that, and all of those are available to the public too. So it's a long read, but it's really good. And then there was another one about a Marine reconnaissance unit in Afghanistan that their commander basically ignored a professional's advice on the type of ordnance to use, like the type of bomb to drop. And he basically dropped just like a massively overkill sized bomb right on top of the platoon. The only reason they lived because they were in this canal. So that's a good story too. That was about 3rd Recon. The one that I worked on about CTE and TBI was a really good one. And then let me see here. I worked on a really cool one with so the Marine Corps doesn't have their own medics. We've got Navy corpsmen. And I got a chance to work with a couple of special amphibious reconnaissance corpsmen, like some bad dudes. I got to work with them on an article that outlines like a little bit about their history, what they do, some of the, like all of the schools that they basically go to, because there's just not a lot of information on it. So that one was fun to work on because it was just basically a black hole. Like you do a search on the internet for it, you're not going to find much, but they worked with me on like a really, really awesome article about them. So those 4 I think would be the top.
All right. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was cool to see the CTE. You showed like pictures of brain, like a healthy brain, and then a brain with like Alzheimer's or CTE, and like we're not having the preventative measures or even like the medical assistance or help. We're actively killing these people.
Yeah,
it just blew my mind looking at those pictures. So I recommend, like, for people that are listening, read that article, and I'm definitely going to read these 4 articles or these 3. But it's crazy to think how much money we spend, how much money we could be spending, and like how much these people deserve that. So
yeah, I appreciate that.
It hits home.
Yeah, it's not like I don't care about plugging the site on one side. It's more about like the importance of the subject on those. But definitely, if anybody's listening to this that is interested in the military, whether somebody that's younger that is interested in joining, or if it's somebody that just has a respect and an interest in it in general, there's quite a bit on there. Like if you get a subscription, you'll have access to everything, but there's quite a bit on there that you can read that doesn't require it, and you'll get a feel for the type of stuff that's on the site. But it's definitely a top-notch place to go. So
yeah, I was definitely going to plug that for sure for you. But do you ever get any like negative feedback or pushback from anybody on your stuff?
Yeah, so we got there's like a rule, like, or whatever, not a rule, but like an understanding among all the writers to not read the Facebook comments.
Oh, okay.
Because you get all the trolls that are just like, they don't read the article, they just look at the headline and just make their comment based on that. So I remember when I first started, I like read a couple, I'm like, oh, Wow, that hurt. And then the editor was like, dude, he's like, they're, don't read those. He's like, they're not everybody that reads that is an idiot, but like the majority of them are just there to start trouble.
Right.
So I got, he said I would get jaded after a while, and I certainly did. Like now I can read stuff, and like I don't even have the urge to respond. It's just like,
Yeah.
Got thick skin pretty quick.
Yeah, whatever, dude.
Yeah.
That's how most people, we consume information, we read the headline, and we're like, all right, I'm the expert.
Yeah.
I saw everything I need.
Yeah. And what's funny is that a lot of times, like, we'll feel the need to like stick up for ourselves or for somebody else on the site or whatever. And another important thing that I was told from the editor early on was basically just that there are smart people out there that will correct these morons that are starting stuff. So I don't need to get involved. It's not that I'm anything special, but it's beneath us. Like, we do the work to put this information out there, and if people don't read it or don't agree with it, that's fine. But there's always, anytime I'm always like, I'm gonna like nail this little, douchebag that's starting stuff. But I just stop.
Somebody does it for you.
And then 2 minutes later, there's somebody that just nails this guy. I'm like, oh, he said it better than I would have. That's great. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
I always tell people, like, it's good. It's okay to disagree. Like, it's okay, but be smart about your disagreement. Like, do the research. You did the research, right, in the article.
Yeah.
So do the research, read the article first and foremost, right? And then, like, if you have an opinion, make it educated. And it's okay to disagree, and like that's But we don't. This is like something one of my buddies and I were talking about. We were talking about like all the politics now, some of the things that are going on in America, and we're like, we should have a podcast where we literally put people with different points of view and make it people that like can stand to be around each other, because the idea is that we don't really know how to debate as Americans, right? We watch presidents debate, but we don't know how to debate. What we do is like, I disagree with you, now let's fight, let's like get in fisticuffs.
Oh yeah, man.
Because we don't know how to conversate with each other. Or better yet, I'm going to be a big person on the internet, but if we were face to face, we probably wouldn't have that. The conversation wouldn't be the same.
Yeah, it's funny. I definitely, I'm grateful that I've gotten some thick skin as a result of the year and a half or so more that I've been there.
Right.
But there's been some characters over the years for sure. Like I write, like that Fox Company series was a 20,000 word series. So like the average book that's like 200 to 300 pages long. Like your average book is about 60,000 to 80,000 words.
Yeah.
So I wrote a web series that was 20,000 words, so pretty substantial, like insane amounts of detail.
Yeah.
And I would have people like not on the Facebook comments, but on the site, like subscribers that would try to like get me to explain other things. And at a certain point, I just stopped responding to them, because what kept happening is like I would end up like rewriting the article to explain it. I'm like, dude, did you read it? Like just reread it. Like,
point them out to a paragraph.
That's
hilarious.
Get a dictionary and read the article.
That's crazy, man. It's insane. We've been touching on hot topics lately here on the podcast, like the past couple of weeks, just because everything's going on. Like we talked about the kneeling and the national anthem and stuff like that. We were talking about gun laws after the Las Vegas thing. I didn't know if you have an opinion on, especially I guess the gun laws after the Las Vegas incident. That was a pretty big deal, and we got
plenty of gun laws.
Yeah, I mean, if you expound
my take on the subject, I'm not familiar with what you guys think about it, but my take on the matter is we have plenty of gun laws across the board. I think that they're good and they should be enforced. I don't think that any more gun laws would have changed what happened. I know it's kind of like cliche at this point to use the example of other countries, like some over in Europe that have very strict weapons bans and laws and whatnot, or in China where there's where there's a will there's a way. There's knife attacks, there's acid attacks, there's all these different things, vehicles. So I'm definitely against the argument of blaming it on the gun. I definitely think that I'm not opposed to like stricter like background checks for people with a mental history. But from what I know about this guy in Vegas, there was no sign of that. So it's a terrible thing, but I don't think that any gun laws would have changed it. I'm not really sure what else could have been done. I do think it's weird that they were, the dude was in a hotel, where it's like there's probably a few other places in the world where you're going to be more watched than a Vegas hotel.
Right.
And they couldn't pick up on anything, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah. What are your all's thoughts on it? Not to have y'all rehash everything, but
no, we talked about it, and honestly, to be 100 with you, I went from a lot of different emotions, and I've had a couple weeks now to process the information, but I was definitely that person, just kind of an outside perspective, hearing. I did a lot of research myself, and I didn't write a 20,000 word paper, but I was close to 8,000 words just writing it, and really just for myself, because I wanted to understand. People were saying we didn't have enough gun laws, so I wanted to understand it. So what I concluded was, and I agree, I think now a couple weeks have gone by, and Chicago is a city that has some of the strictest gun laws, and they also have some of the most murders and homicides.
DC, New York, you name it. You go down the list of any city that has high murder rates, it's incredibly strict gun laws.
So that was kind of my, now a couple weeks attached, right, is a horrible event. If it could have been prevented, obviously there are things we can do. I think, to your point, the stricter background checks, right? Because this guy passed all the required tests, right? And he's still so maybe a stricter test, but definitely for mentally ill or mentally handicapped, that should be something that we look at. But I don't know. I mean, if you listen to that episode, I was real hot about it because I was just like, what is going on? What are we doing? We're allowing this guy to have 30 plus weapons, and I was like, what are we doing? Why is that even possible? But I don't know. A lot of those, I don't think it's possible, and I think I said this in that podcast. It's not possible to take away in America. I don't think it's possible to change the amendments. Obviously it's possible to change the amendments. I don't want anybody to send me an email saying it's not possible. I get it. It's possible, but
I think what you're getting at is it's impossible for them to essentially take the millions and millions of guns that are in, law-abiding citizens' hands away from them. It's not feasible.
It's they estimated as of 2012, there's 310 million guns in the United States. Now, it was 10 million of those are registered. But yeah, there's again, that's a lot of money. Australia did it, right, where they bought everybody's guns, but they didn't. They don't have that many people. There's not that many guns. We have a history of the Second Amendment being one of the first 10 amendments that we ratified, and we put it in place, the right to bear arms. And the more research I do on it, I guess this is a good opportunity for me to say, I think there again is somewhere where we can find ourselves in the middle, right, where it's. Maybe we don't let people that have mental illness or mentally, mental handicap to own a gun. Maybe we don't let them have that. But do I go around everyone's house and say,
but making sure that that's shored up and being enforced properly and maybe more effectively. I'm not super up to speed on what that entails, but of course, no one wants someone that's mentally disturbed to have something like that. But at the same time, there are counter arguments to everything. Even on the side that I'm on, there's countless counter arguments that could be used against me. But that same mentally deranged person can go get a knife and hack up a bunch of people or run them over with their car, or you know what I'm saying? And you can people will say, well, why does somebody need a 30-round magazine for their AR-15? Why not 10? It's okay, well, for one, you can change magazines pretty quickly, especially if you practice. You know what I mean? And yes, it does. It may cut down and give a little pause, but I don't know. There's so many things. There's so many flaws with even that argument where it's like, well,
you said the most perfect thing though. Where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah, it's evil in the world that's the problem, not the fact that we have guns. They're just a vehicle for people to do what they want to do. And there's years and years of data to back that up in other countries that do have effective gun bans, like not restrictions, bans.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know, that argument. There's just I'm not going to have my mind changed on it, even though I do support common sense. And that doesn't mean common sense is in like take stuff away. It means enforce what we have. But
yeah, that's funny. That's what we were going to name our podcast, was Common Sense.
Nice.
Don't take that. Nobody take that. No,
very good, man.
It's over, yeah. No, I mean, I agree. I think, I had a buddy of mine, my buddy Chris Workman, you may remember him, is one of our friends, and I texted him that. I was real hot about it. I was like, dude, this is ridiculous, outrageous. Get rid of all the guns, right? Like, take all the guns need to come off the street. Yeah. And he's like, and if you know Chris, he's like, well, McDonald's kills more people than. And I'm like, shut up. That's not a good argument. Let's talk, I'm tired of hearing this. He's like, well, listen, I'm just playing devil's advocate. Like, you want to, so I was doing the same thing that, I'm so against, right? Like, you said it, there's counterpoints to every argument, and we could go all day, but I think the conversation we need, whatever rules we do have, they just need to be enforced, and there needs to be an agency that, that holds everybody accountable to that standard, but... Yeah, it was a crazy couple weeks, and obviously since then we've had a lot of crazy things happen that are California is burning down, like it's literally burning to the ground, and that's just Mother Nature seeking revenge, and it's like, I feel for those people, like that, hundreds of thousands of square miles just burning. It's crazy to think, and.
Yeah.
If we haven't, Bernie, I don't know. You still have friends that live out in California? It's like Northern California though, so I don't know.
I have a couple up north
know.
Of California,
but hopefully everybody's safe up there.
Yeah. I was gonna read. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead, man.
I was just gonna go back a little bit, but you can go. Hold on a second. I was just gonna read something about the whole gun thing from a guy I look up to. He wrote this today. Actually, he said the United States is third in murders throughout the world, but if you take out Chicago, Detroit, and Washington, D.C., and New Orleans, the United States is fourth from the bottom for murders. He said, believe it or not, these four cities also have the toughest gun control laws in the United States. So I was just going to say that's just food for thought.
I hear you loud and clear, so we got to get rid of those four cities.
we need to nuke those cities.
Get rid of the Chicago, New Orleans.
And they'll be fourth from the bottom. It will be good.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Great.
That's wild because fourth from the bottom puts you in company with countries that ban firearms.
I don't know.
I'm never too clear on numbers for issues like this. You know what I mean? Like, there's just I don't have the brain capacity for it, I guess, because Marine Corps ruined me. But yeah, it's just, but you get the principle, whether you memorize the numbers or not, and the stats. It's just, it's a fact.
Yeah.
Fewer legal guns or more restrictions doesn't equate to safer areas,
Right. All right. Well, how do you feel about the whole national anthem thing? Just to switch gears here a little bit.
No, that's a fun one. So I think that while some of these athletes, the athletes that are doing this, I think that the majority of them are misguided in their frustration and anger. I think that I understand that they, I don't like some of the injustices that occur. I mean, nobody supports that. But I think the way that they're addressing it is kind of misguided. I support if they want to kneel and, show their support for this cause or this ideology, that I don't think all of them, if you ask like 100 different players, or let's say 10 different players, you're probably going to get 5 or 6 different answers.
Yeah.
I think the whole cause is just it's a fad more than anything. Like, if you ask them why they're doing that, they don't even really know why.
Right.
my opinion, but I support if they want to do that, I support it. But I do think that they can stand during the national anthem, like the Cowboys. If they want to kneel before the anthem and then stand up for it, do it to it. I'm not up in arms about what they're upset about, because I don't think that it's the issue that they're making it out to be. But I think it's their right to do it. I'm all for it in that sense. I just think that they're using the national anthem to get attention for it is the wrong way to go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the Cowboys probably did it one of the better ways. I know my football team kind of made a big stink. They didn't even come out on the field, but then the next week they decided, like literally every single one of them stood for the national anthem. So I get what all the teams are doing, right? You want to, if you're going to do something, do it as a team, do it in unity. So like the Cowboys kneeled before the national anthem in unity to show that yes, there are injustices in the world, and we don't approve of them, we don't stand for them. But then, if you ask, I would say if you ask 10 of those players, are they trying to disrespect the military? I assume all 10 will say no, right? It's like that's not the point, but it does seem that way, and there are people that take it that way, and if it's one person's taking it that way, there's hundreds of thousands of people who are taking it that way. So most of the teams now have started doing it right.
Yeah, because like what irritates me is the veterans that are like, oh, I was a veteran, you stand for my for the flag, and I fought for that, and blah blah blah. And the truth is, most of those guys probably never even fired their rifle; they just served. So that whole thing is kind of absurd to me. But I think as an American, I don't care I don't care if you can have an opinion if you're a veteran, but I think if you want to try to be this staunch, oh, I'm a veteran, here's my argument, and here's why you're wrong, that's a horrible platform for that. Yeah. But I think as Americans, we're all Americans. This country is not perfect, but you have what you have because of this country. There are horrible things that have happened. Yeah. There have been horrible things that happened that were misconstrued by the media to fit their narrative, and then there are facts that aren't recognized as far as the statistics for cop shootings and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Who they shoot, who's shooting at cops, different things like that. There's just so many things that aren't part of that discussion. Right. So while there are terrible things that happen, I think they're missing the bigger picture, which is hey, nobody's out to get you as this country is not out to get you. Yes, there are stupid people out there. Yeah. And cops that have done some horrible things, and maybe race, definitely race played a factor in a lot of those. But this country is not out to get you, so don't take it out as it's America's fault. Right. So I don't know. But at the same time, go ahead, man.
No, I was just going to say, I think what we forget that media is a business, and they're going to report on things that make them money. So that's the narrative we see.
Yep. Yeah, and then one of the things I like about working at SoftRep is that I've never once been told, no, you can't write about that. Straight up, never happened. And I've written some pretty controversial stuff that, ruffled a lot of feathers, and my bosses are just yeah, go for it, man. Because here's the thing, part of the way we're structured and the difference between us and the mainstream media is that they rely heavily on sponsors, donors, whatever, you know what I mean? They're at the mercy of these people. So if the people giving them the money say, hey, you're not going to do this, they're not going to do it, or they will do something, they'll do whatever they need to do. Whereas us, we're we are a subscription-based company. We have sponsors, but that's not our bread and butter. Right. So we can do whatever we want without any pressure. Because early on that happened. I think there was a transgender Navy SEAL, and SoftRep covered something about it and wasn't trashing the guy, and or girl, whatever. And
right.
So the sponsor was oh, you can't do that. We're going to take our money elsewhere. So they're okay, go ahead and do that. We'll just switch our business model. So, but that's the way it works, man. It's a mess. Yeah. That's why I just I try these days. I'm aware of what's going on in the world, but I try to distance myself as much as possible, which is kind of hard to do even though it's not my day job. the line of work that I'm in, it's kind of hard to do that, but
Nice.
got to do what I can. So,
What is your day job, by the way?
I'm gonna keep this one short. I'm an IT project manager for a company, a consulting firm in Louisville, and so I went to school, used my GI Bill to get a degree in it, and I'm grateful that this company gave me the option to do what I wanted to do. So it's been really good.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
So,
well,
but yeah.
We can wrap this up in a minute. I was just going to ask, since you write, I was going to ask if you had like a favorite author I should check out or anything, or any books that you recommend.
I'm trying to think. So, if you're into the military thing, there are several books by guys that write at the site. There's one from a Marine Scout Sniper. His name's Jason Delgado. His new book's out. I think it's Bounty Hunter 4-3. Bounty Hunter 4-3 or 3-4.
Okay.
I haven't read it yet, but I'm hearing really good things about it.
Sweet.
And as a former Marine, definitely that's on the list.
Yeah.
I would have said you could read my book, but the publisher went out of business because they were. Did you hear this story?
No.
I'll tell you real quick. So
yeah, tell me this.
So I got my book published through this company in Oklahoma City, I believe it was. Definitely Oklahoma, but they were like a Christian, family that owned the company and this and that. And fast forward to like earlier this year, the founder and then his son, who was the CEO, got arrested on or were indicted on 8 felony counts, like embezzlement, blackmail, and all these other 8 counts of whatever. And so,
holy crap!
Yeah, so I was just kind of like, whoa, like people had paid so. Part of the self-publishing deal that is tricky as opposed to like a traditional publisher is that a traditional publisher pays you and takes care of everything. Self-publishing, you pay for everything. So I was fortunate in that I literally had like $200. It's usually like a $4,000-ish contract or something. I remember telling the dude whenever they were talking to me, I was like, yeah, I don't have that kind of money. I'm like you crazy? And they're like, well, what can you afford? And I was like, $200. And so they were like, the owner was he was a Marine back in like the 60s or 70s or something like that. So he was like, all right, I'm gonna do this for you. So I was like, okay. So I didn't sell a lot of copies. I think I barely sold I don't think I broke 100 because it wasn't like advertised or anything like that. It was just word of mouth. And so I was only in it a couple $100, and I made that back.
Jeez.
And so whenever this whole thing went down, and people had like $20,000 that they weren't paid from this company, and all this other stuff, I was like, all right, I'm good. Like, you guys are going to prison.
You have a book.
Yeah.
You just don't have copies of it.
That's crazy. Yeah. So you had a book.
Yeah.
I have a few copies that I'm going to keep, and then I have a digital copy. So I have it in like PDF form. So it's there, and I could, if I wanted to, they tried to. So while the news stories were coming out that they were like going to prison, they were going to be doing some time. They were still sending out emails saying like, hey, if you want us to release your manuscript, it's going to be like you have to mail a $50 check to us and this and that.
Yeah.
And then people were doing that, and they still weren't, basically the money was going to their own personal account and not to the company. They were still embezzling money or whatever.
Oh my God. And
so I just remember thinking to myself, I almost did it, and before I found out people were still getting screwed. And I was like, nah. They can come after me. I was like, what are they going to do from prison? If they want to come after me for my little old book, if I wanted to go to another publisher, then good luck. Well, so I don't really. It's not a masterpiece. It's my story, and I'm proud of it. I think it's a good book, but it's not some all-time classic. I'm not stupid. But I don't really have any interest in trying to get it republished or anything. It was more of like a bucket list thing.
Send it to me, too.
I'd still like to read it, PDF form or not.
I will send you the PDF.
I appreciate that. Yeah. Because I started a new book last week.
I bought it. I haven't read it yet.
It's actually the singer of Every Time I Die. He wrote a novel. recently. So
Really? Hey,
yeah.
Nate, just to let you know, I've had like several personal conversations.
Humble
with that
brag.
dude.
With Keith?
The three
I
times
knew I
that
didn't
I've seen
like
him
you.
in concert.
I remember you telling me about that now.
Not to rub it in or anything.
Son of a bitch. Dude, yeah, I remember.
It's so
nice things you
weird.
said.
I've been to their concerts
Right.
so many
I
times.
do remember
I've
you
talked to
telling me those
Andy,
stories.
and I talked to Chris. Yeah,
How's
Chris.
this guy's
No, Daniel, the drummer, their new drummer. He used to be a drummer for Every Time I Die, or for Norma Jean. I don't know if you've seen. Anyway, so he's a drummer for Every Time I Die now. But anyways, I talked to Andy last time I saw him. We talked for a little while. I got a picture with him, and then Daniel. Daniel's real cool. He's easy to talk to just because he's more approachable. But like, Keith, he always like disappears. I never see him.
Yeah. He was sitting, the first time I met him, like I was probably like 17 or something like that. He was sitting at the bar in this place, that the little hall they were playing or whatever.
Yeah.
I just remember he's standing there, so I just kind of like, what's up,
Yeah.
man? Like,
I want to read his book.
while you're standing here, let's talk. But he was a pretty cool dude.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. He's a.
sorry, dude.
Yeah.
I think it's like short
so he
stories,
wrote a
isn't
novel?
it?
Oh yeah. I'm
haven't
only
read
in the
it. I don't
beginning,
know.
so
I
I
don't know
can't
what
really
you're
tell you
talking
much about it. It's just
Yeah.
it's about a guy. No, it's basically about this character named Ray Goldman. He's basically a singer of a band on tour, so it's almost like about his life. It sounds like, but I don't
There's actually a
so
there's
that's
a
what I've been reading
podcast out
that's
there
what I'm reading
called
now,
Lead
but,
Singer
I
Syndrome.
definitely want to read your book. And stuff.
Nick
But,
and
I guess
I think
I'll
Bernie's
send
listened
it
to
to
it,
you.
but they
It's an easy
they interview. It's one guy. It's all like usually not all hardcore bands, but the ones I listen to is like Keith was on there once, then Corey from Norma Jean. I want to say I know the Aaron, the drummer for Under Oath, was on there talking about yeah, right.
Why don't you guys reach out? Why don't you guys
All
find
right,
these dudes
Bernie.
on Twitter and ask them to come on your show, man? Why not?
It's a good idea.
Why
That's
not?
a good idea. Yeah, why not? It's not gonna hurt.
What are they
going
gonna do? What are they gonna do? Say no?
That's a good idea that you put in my head.
Just think about the odds. Like if you message like 20 of them, at least
Yeah.
one of them's gonna say
Right.
yes. I mean, not that they're gonna be like intentionally.
We have
rude,
to. I
just
feel like we
ignore you
know.
guys, but
we probably know.
I'd say you
people
have to
that
at
know
least get a
people
response
that-
from at
what
least
is
one or
the
two of them,
saying?
huh?
You're like 5
Yeah,
people
I
away from
love that
anyone you
idea.
want to meet in the world. So yeah, we'd probably make that happen.
There you go.
something like that.
No,
yeah.
you're
Dude,
fine.
I've
Take your
talked
time.
to, and you never know. Like, so, if you're trying to wrap things up, I apologize, but
No.
I gotta say this while we're on it. So, my favorite, I'm a big UFC fan. Like, I like
Oh, yeah.
MMA in general, but Bellator is getting better. But I like the UFC a lot.
All right. Love
So,
it.
my favorite all-time fighters are Chael Sonnen, the bad guy,
Yeah.
Dan
Oh,
Henderson,
nice.
Yeah.
and Brian Stan. Because Brian Stan was actually my commanding officer for about a year when I was in the Marines.
No way. That's awesome.
So when he fought in the WEC, he showed up to formation with his championship belt from the WEC and a black eye one day and was like telling us about it. And he was a cool dude. So anyway, Chael Sonnen, my favorite fighter, like big talker, loudmouth, love it. And I don't know, I wasn't creeping. I was legitimately just like on LinkedIn or something and was just like, I wonder if Chael's on LinkedIn or something like that.
Nice.
So I like did a search and I found like his profile from when he was like a realtor back in the day, and it had his an email address. So I just sent him an email. I was like, "Hey man, like big fan, like just wanted to say hey or something like that."
Yeah.
And he responded and he was like, "Hey man, blah blah blah." He was super cool. So I asked him a question about like, hey, if I was wanting to start doing MMA or whatever, like what should I be looking for? He gave me a really awesome answer. And fast forward like a year or two, whatever, my wife and I, we went to a UFC event in Indianapolis, and I messaged him. He was working as a commentator for Fox at the time when he wasn't fighting. So he was going to be working that show. So I remember sending him an email. I was like, hey, my wife and I are going to be there. We'd love to meet you. Like, at that point, he knew I was a big fan, obviously. So we were like on our way up there, and all of a sudden my phone dings, and I like handed it over to my wife, and he was like, he just said, "What's your number?" So I was like, holy crap, this is working. So I sent him my number, and we were sitting in an area where we could like look down and see his little booth where he was working, or big booth, whatever. But he, at one point, he called there to break, and my phone started ringing. He like, the block or whatever, so it just said unknown. So I like stepped out into the foyer, and I could still see. And he was like talking on his phone, and he was like, "Hey buddy, this is Cherokee, blah blah blah." And I couldn't really hear him too well, but he did like his little. He was like big for his promos and stuff, so he did one of his little spiels. And so I was like, "Oh my god, like I'm talking to this dude." And but I couldn't really hear him, so we were trying to coordinate like a way for me to get down there, so I could like get an autograph or get a picture like we had planned. But like we just, I could never figure out how to like get down to his area or whatever, so it didn't happen. But I messaged him after the fact and was like, hey, if I send you like an envelope to like a PO box or something, is there any chance I get like an autograph for my son? So he was just like, what's your address? I got you, or something like that. So he sent me me like his
you never know.
UFC fighter like Cops card or whatever it is signed.
Yeah.
And I'm just, dude, so like
all through LinkedIn.
Moral of the story is
once again,
reach out.
Nick has inspired us.
No. Like if they think you're, if they think you're weird,
it's full circle.
Yeah, dude, link. I know.
Hey man, it's a good thing you guys didn't meet me back in like 2007, otherwise you'd have like high and tights and be wearing camis right now. You met me.
Awesome.
You met me before and after that. So
Right.
Or whatever you get.
Dude,
you know
that's
what I'm saying.
I'm just gonna start sending emails to everyone I want to meet. Just every person in the world. Just
that's
I did.
Story.
I know this isn't probably the most popular person, but I did message Kanye West a bunch of times on private messenger and Instagram, because it was at the time when he was like going through. We had just seen him, and Bernie and I went and seen him in Indianapolis, and then he had like a mental breakdown. And for like a week straight, every day, I sent him a private message on Instagram. This was before he closed his account, and I was like, listen, man, like, stay positive. I was like, always positive messages, like, stay positive, don't listen to the noise, it'll be all right. Every day I sent one, and then he canceled his Instagram account. So he's like, I'm tired of listening to this guy, I'm out.
See what you did?
Wow.
Hey, you had a part in that. Don't sell yourself short.
That's awesome. What?
Nice.
Yeah,
that's awesome, dude. So you never know, man. You never know.
No, you don't. I'm definitely gonna reach out, because I follow a lot of my favorites on Twitter, favorite people. So I'm gonna definitely try that out. Thanks for that, Nick. That's amazing. But that was
just do a little quick pitch and say like, hey, I got basically just we've got this podcast and like to have you on. Yeah. You don't have to give them too much info. Just pitch it out there, and once you get them to respond, then you got them hooked.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna try it. I'll let you know if.
Hopefully, it's the.
For sure.
Oh, yeah.
Hopefully, it's the lead singer for Extol.
I'd love to, man.
We'll get him on here. I just want to let you know. I'll let you know afterwards.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah.
Peter Esquivel.
Yeah.
Actually, having watched their documentary, I don't think that's gonna happen. He's very like shy. Yeah. Have you ever seen their documentary?
No.
You should watch it.
I didn't know they had it.
It's called Of Light and Shade. You can download it, I think, from iTunes or whatever.
All right, cool. Yeah. All right, we'll do that. Well, everybody listening, go and you can probably Google your name, and it'll take you to like the Soft Rep site, I think, because I did that earlier to see what happened. But yeah, so if you want to check out his writing, go to that website, check it out, subscribe, and we'll have Nick back on. All right.
I appreciate it, guys. It was fun to talk, and for the listeners, if you guys have any mean Facebook comments, I've got thick skin now, so
yeah,
just don't be mean, because it won't work.
Right.
But no, don't. But yeah, guys, I appreciate it. You guys are, guys that like we were talking recently. We haven't really been close over the years, but we'll always be friends and
absolutely
pick up where we left off, man. You guys are good dudes.
Thanks, man. Yeah.
So
we'll do this again. We'll talk to you.